So last year I was trying to find some upbeat contemporary Christmas carols, which is shockingly harder to find than you would ever imagine. And then I found Paul Baloche, which was such a gift to me because, and of course it was him, because back when I hated worship, like hated it, it was so awkward and horrible. I remember I would turn on Pandora. You guys got Pandora, right? And I would get just the collection of whatever came on. And whenever there was a song that I felt like, okay, this is genuine, this is real, this like I think I might actually be worshiping, because I'm not sure if I really worship, in very many of the songs. Anyway, and so when it was actually a good song, and I felt like it was authentic and real, I would always run over and look and see who it was. And over and over and over again, it would be Paul Baloche, who I had no idea who he was, and I'm not even sure if to this day I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But in any case, I fell in love with him, and so then when I found this Christmas music by him, I'm like, of course it's you. It's like a long-lost love, like, you're the one who could do upbeat. I mean, have you ever heard those songs upbeat before? Like, yay! I know, right? It was so, shockingly fun. So I love how we can just love and value the richness of our traditions and the past and even our own story. I love what you shared. Like, hey, we don't even need a message after that. That was so good. And how God isn't taking the things that we are frustrated about in the past or ashamed of in the past. He's not throwing it all out. He's going, let's take a new look at that. Let's see where I was in that. Let's look at the value in that. One of the most beautiful parts of that song, Heaven Come Down, I wanted Paul to change the lyrics to Heaven Came Down, right? And so I always sing it that way, because he's like so alive and present in us. And singing anything other than that kind of just feels wrong to me. And it was really fun because any of you know Deborah Murrow? I don't know if you know, she's a local artist here in Phoenix. And so she came and did live art for us last Christmas Eve, and we did that song. And her artwork was to that song. She did it through the whole message. But when she finished it, it was Heaven Came Down, not Heaven Come Down. Because in the middle of her artwork, the Lord stopped her and said, no, I'm here. I'm in this place and I've already come. And so I went, oh, yes, right? Like it's like letting go of the traditions of the past and saying yes to a whole new perspective. So on that note, we had some kids, maybe just one kid doing art with God, not to point you out. But so did you want to share what you did?
Sure.
Great. I'll bring it up and you can take the mic with Greg. I love our kids doing art with God.
I think I'm like the only one.
Well, you know what? Okay, so Abraham did an awesome one a couple weeks ago.
I wasn't here.
I know, you weren't here. It was so good. I know. And it was, I think, like the first one he's like really, really done. And he even wrote an explanation under it that was like so genius that made me want to cry. And I said, I love what you wrote. He goes, I was so afraid to write on it what it meant. And he goes, but I felt like I was, what did you say, Abraham? Where is he? Is he like hiding? Oh, we don't know where he is. See, that's what happens. You kids run around when you're caught up front on a microphone. Who knows where the kids are? Anyway, so he said he was afraid and nervous to write, but he felt like he was supposed to. And it was so, so good. So, and that's like the first time ever. Like we are all getting to experience first times ever. So, Mia, why don't you tell us what you drew here?
Okay, so I don't know if everybody can see it, but it's a person. That's what that is. And I suck at drawing hands, but that thing's supposed to be a hand covering the chest. And like around it, like where the heart would be, there's like darkness, because we are our own inner demons sometimes. And I figured that out the other day because I was left alone all day and I got really depressed and sad. But like, I wrote a little explanation to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, first, around it, there are like happy things, like the word happiness, the sun, a smiling face, and then the word joy. And the darkness is like kind of going towards it. Even when you think your heart isn't beating, it is. Listen to the world around you and choose to hear love instead of darkness.
I'd say drop the mic, but don't drop the mic. Thank you,
You
Mia.
said that he gets afraid about writing on it. I get scared for like typos and stuff.
Right? My art with God is not grammatically correct. Thank God for auto check, because I went to a Christian school, not that you need to know this, and somehow we missed in that school all grammar. And so I am the worst speller, and correct me if I'm wrong.
They covered it there.
What?
They covered it there.
They covered it, and I
You
missed
just
it.
missed out.
I just missed 2 years of it. Well, I switched schools. That's the explanation. I know.
So did I.
I know no phonics.
Want to get out of this
and
one, or what do you want to do?
Terribly. Anyway, my point is that somehow I never learned it. I'm sure it was all my own fault, and then I never did pick it up later as an adult. So that's a hilarious, Anyway, so cool.
And I'm usually pretty good at it, except when Dan and Kitty were here last weekend.
Why? What'd you do?
I messed up metal and metal and metal.
Oh yeah! Wow, that's horrifically embarrassing.
Horrifically.
I mean, wow. Is there
The
trauma?
3 metals. There was
PTSD?
trauma.
You need some counseling for that? Maybe so. Okay. So, kids, for those of you who are in the room, before you go off to kids with Miss Christy, which I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Sometimes I just want to. I find out what Christy does afterwards with our kids, and I'm like, we just need to all go in her class. Seriously, rocks the house. So we've been talking about being, right? We've been talking about being a thermostat instead of being a thermometer, which is that we get to set the temperature around us instead of just taking the temperature, which most of us have become experts at taking the temperature because that's the perspective we were born into. We were born into a perspective that we are aware of what is in the world. But what is in the world is not the greater reality. How God sees things and what God originally made things to be is a greater reality, and being a thermostat changes the temperature so that what God sees and what God originally intended can come forth. It's an atmosphere and life-changing shift. And then last week we brought out the Monopoly board, and we talked about how the different places, like Park Place, the different little spots on the board can be like different areas of our life. It could be from the 6 to 8 a.m. time. It can be a relationship. It's a spot in our life. And it's almost like it's got its own little territory. Have you ever noticed that? You're doing super great. You're doing super great. From 9 to noon, awesome. And then 1 o'clock comes and a phone call with a particular person who's frustrated or aggravated, and all of a sudden you have become from the most spiritually peaceful, joyful, well-balanced, genius-thinking person to a raging maniac. And you're like, how did that happen? I was really mature 5 minutes ago, and now I have no maturity whatsoever. It's because you've moved from one territory into another territory, and that territory is contended. I know, right? It's so true. We're geniuses in the territories that we own. But in the territories that are being pressed by fear or failure or anger or frustration, blocked goals, we become this different person, and we just land in these territories, and then we allow ourselves to become abused with thinking, with emotions, and we don't even realize that that territory was meant for us to own. That doesn't get to be, oh, somebody else got to Park Place before me. Negativity got to Park Place before me and bought it and has a whole bunch of hotels. And every time I land in front of my boss or my bank account or my friend, right? I know, I love that reaction. Or every time I land in front of a family member, that spot is, I know, right? He's talking, okay, sorry, right to you. When we land,
These examples are not prophetic.
Right.
They are self-revealing. If you think they're prophetic,
He doesn't say a lot.
just come live with us for a little
When
while.
he does, I love you so much. Oh, you're so good, right? Yes, they are self-revealing. So when you land in this certain area and you're like, man, every time I land in this spot, it costs me a whole lot. It's like all the resources that I have just get sucked out of me, and I find myself bankrupt, having to go to the bank and borrow more money just to get through this encounter, just to get through this weekend, just to get through this holiday, just to get through this conversation. I find myself bankrupt, having to go to the bank and get more. And the Lord is wanting to utterly convince humanity that we are the owners of every territory in our life. That a usurper, that someone who doesn't belong there has come and set up camp and tried to convince us that we don't own that space. That goodness, calmness, kindness, joy, and peace doesn't overflow from us to become such a greater than, we are the greater than, so that that space becomes overwhelmed. A quick little example, and then I'll let you kids go, was when a child that I had, I won't say whose name it was younger, they/he, had colic, and that caused that person to cry a lot. And
Much younger.
much younger, really, really little. And do you want to be released before I'm sorry, I shared this without asking permission. I'll share this another time. Let's think of another example. Hang on.
I was trying to, you mentioned the bank,
But
and I
it's
was,
so good. It's so good. It's such a good story. It is a really good story. But I'll skip it because I didn't ask for permission. Go ahead. You want to share one?
no, I don't have anything.
You
I was
have
just trying
nothing?
to, I was trying to draw like parallels between your banking example and like the Bank of Evil in Despicable Me. When he goes to the Bank of Evil, formerly Lehman Brothers.
Outfunding,
Yeah.
giant schemes.
Yes.
It's hilarious. So that you can capture the
But
moon.
I don't have the
It's
parallel
not
yet.
happening. The Lord hasn't quite tied those pieces together.
Not yet.
We got to work on that. It was a good start, but the box of shame is
There's
kind
that
of
too.
overwhelming. So those of you who haven't seen Despicable Me 500 times with your kids might have missed
You need
those
to.
references. So hold on. Let me just think for a second and ask the Lord what a different analogy would be that would be awesome with kids right here. He's going, get personal. Okay, I'm willing to get personal. Okay.
Pick on
So-
Darby. She's not here.
I know, right? So I discovered as a parent that I would find myself agitated whenever it came time for one-on-one play. Anyone with me? Please help me out.
I don't want to be the mommy, even if I am a mom.
Right? And I couldn't figure this out because I'm like, I'm a playful person. I'm creative. Like, what is the deal? Every time it came time for one-on-one play, I'd be like, I have emails to return. I have phone calls. I got laundry. I got all the stuff I don't even want to do, I will do during that time. And then I would blame myself for being the most horrible person on the planet. What is wrong with me? And then where does that lead you? To a vicious cycle, right? Where somebody else owns your... Spending one-on-one time, nose to nose, eyeball to eyeball, cheek to cheek with my kids becomes a place where I feel bad about myself. So then how often do you want to visit that place? And so then you find yourself subconsciously avoiding it because you feel bad about yourself, because you are unsuccessful in it, and you're probably a horrible person. And then the Lord started to show me everything that you don't love about yourself isn't actually you. It's not coming from you, it's coming at you to convince you that it's you. And so I discovered that there was something in the atmosphere that was trying to own that territory in my life. There's something pushing. I don't know what, but whatever that atmospheric thing was, it was pushing on that space. And so then instead of trying to overcome it by my own effort, which by the way would just be a really great revelation turned into religion, instead of trying to, by effort, own that spot on the board, I asked the Lord, what's going on here? Isn't that like the most genius question? What's going on here? What's going on? It's so shocking. What's going on? Because he didn't say, you're a terrible mother, you're a terrible person, I probably never should have given you kids, and you don't deserve them, and how bad are you? He said, this is something that's pushing on how great a parent I actually made you. I made you to be a genius parent, like above average. And I love your mothering, and I love your playfulness. I love how you listen, and I love your level of engagement, and this is pressing on you so that you don't know the best parts about you. And I started to discover that maybe there was a possibility that all the little territories in my life that were the worst were actually pushing me from the best of myself, so that I would never know who I fully was. And so I decided how, I need to know how do I overcome? And so this is the fun part, is again, if you just decide by your own effort you're going to attempt to change this, because see, we're not trying to become more patient, more kind, more joyful, more fun, more loving, more whatever, or more articulate, or more skilled, or more grammatically correct. We're not trying to become more. We are waiting for the Holy Spirit to convince us that we already are. And that's the difference between relationship with God and religion. Religion will continue to keep a carrot out in front of us, trying to convince us that we got to become more, and by our effort get there. And the God of the universe, who loves us, will always say to us, I want to utterly convince you that you already are this. And so he said to me, here's my idea for you. He said, what do you love to do so much that it can stand up in this atmosphere? You might want to write that down on it. I'm just kidding. What do you love so much that it will stand up in this territory? In this on Park Place, where there's a whole bunch of hotels, what do you love so much? And do you know what my answer was? Are you ready for this? Artwork. I love art. I like crafting, I like painting, I like drawing. And so the Lord said, do that with your kids. Do that. Do the thing that you love so much, take it with you into a space that utterly demolishes you, and see if you can rise up in it. Take the very thing that you already have good momentum in, and move it into the other space and see what happens. Genius! Because I became, do you remember Darby and I sitting at the counter? I don't know if you even remember this. Yeah, sitting at the countertop. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I am watercoloring. He's like, it's strawberry shortcake. I know, it is so good. I want to frame strawberry shortcake, 59-cent coloring sheet, because it is that good. I mean, I've got like graduating color. I'm like putting salt on it, so I've got like variation in texture. It was some kick booty, strawberry shortcake painting happening there. But more importantly, my daughter and I started to have the best conversations ever, because you know her history with autism, so it was already hard to connect. And so that was how we started to shift. And the Lord goes, it's totally okay to take the victories in your other area and move them into the places that have hotels set up by negativity. He goes, stop taking hotels of negativity and moving them into your places of victory. Stop taking past defeats and throwing them out in your future like they exist. They don't exist there. Your negative past only exists in one place, and I have to thank Andre Rabe for this because he's a genius. Do you know that our memories only exist in one place? Or our negative past only exists in one place, and that is our memory. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Is that so crazy? And how many of us know that our memory isn't actually accurate? Right? We all have seen a car wreck, and we all saw it differently. So it is only our perception of the past that actually exists with us. And how quickly can that change? Like that. God can change even the past experiences that we've had by showing us a new way to look at it. And that changes the outcome. That's called redemption. He goes, let me take the negative thing and make it better than it was before. Let me take the negative experience and make it better than. He's the only one who takes two negatives and makes it a positive. I love it. So, kids, if you're having a challenge with a friend, you're having a challenge with a parent, what I want you to do is think to yourself, think. Who does that? Winnie the Pooh. Think. And say, what am I great at that I can do with this person that they can't help but love too? Or what are they great at that they love to do that I will learn to do with them and see if it doesn't shift. Like, we get to teach our kids this. It's so great. Okay, so kids, you are released. Do you have something that goes along with that? She had the most genius correlation to all of our messages. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was a curveball. Not so much.
Well, I have 3 different lessons, and I've been asking the Holy Spirit
which one you're going to do.
Tonight,
Me too. No, I'm just kidding.
Figure it out.
He'll figure it out. That's so fun. Yay! All right. So kids under 9. Oh, it's all boys. So fun. That seems like an adventure. That's so funny. We have no little girls tonight, and no older, or not few.
3
older
of them
men.
are related.
Right? I know, it's so good. Hey, Linz, would you grab me some water? Do you mind? Okay. Well, I know, but I don't know. So, now that kids are gone, I'm going to tell you the craziest story. Oh, wait, I can't. Shoot. Nothing. Never mind. I wasn't thinking. I was thinking and then I went, oh, yeah, no.
She's referencing the table over there.
The table of
With the
awesomeness
teens.
over here. So here's what I will do.
There's something that
I felt like the Lord
she
wanted
probably
me to
shouldn't have
share it,
shared
but all
with
of a sudden,
anyone.
I got oh wait, that would be inappropriate. So,
we'll pick another time for that.
right? I'm
You
trying
were
to-
talking about bringing something fun. It reminded me of what I would do in college before studying. Which is, what did you do before studying? You're like, oh, I got to study. I got to do my... You would clean up. That never happened? Oh, that's what I would do.
That would
clean.
See, this is the fun
I got
thing
nothing
you
else to do. Now I can study. Who does that? Anybody did that? All right. We got some people, some
so-
procrastinators.
I went to Joanne Paradise's house this week, and I walked in, and there was not a thing out of place. Everybody's bed was made, including the kindergartner's bed. And I said to myself, my husband would so love to be married to Joanne. Right?
Doesn't God do that?
Right? I know. But Greg is working on that territory in my life, which is to have things immaculately clean. Or how about just not a death trap? Where you don't have to step over stuff just to exit a room. That would be a start, wouldn't it? Let's have everyone pray
Nice
for that
start.
for me, right? Because this is an area I am going to win over. I am so going to win in that territory. That territory is mine. I must be a genius organizer and cleaner inside somewhere. Okay, so let me see if I can share this story in a really appropriate way.
Very
I got
appropriate.
the coolest call this week. You guys know that I got to speak to some Bethel students a couple years ago. And so one of those students reached out to me on Facebook, and she's currently living in South Africa, which is her home. And so she said, I need some help. She goes, there's been something that I've been struggling with for a couple of years, and I need some help. And so we got to talk, which, by the way, did any of you know that you can talk to people in another country via Facebook?
Yes.
Where have I been all this, right? I just don't know enough international people. It's so genius. There was a slight delay, so we kept cutting each other off, but other than that, it was perfect. Anyway, so she was sharing about an area of her life that I can just say is robbing her of all of her joy. It's like if you've ever had that happen where you feel like most of the territories you're getting pretty big in. Most of the territories of your life you're feeling pretty strong. But this particular territory was skewing her perspective on every other part of her life. It was saying to her, this failure in your life makes all your other successes null and void. Never happened, right? To you, right? It was this particular thing takes you down everywhere, essentially. In fact, it had so affected her perspective of herself that she was ready to call Bethel and tell them that she didn't deserve her diploma because she was, right? Because she was participating in a behavior that she was sure was wrong. And so you can ask me later what that is. But I'm listening to her. Wow, I don't do that very often. I mean, not around them, around you all the time. And I felt the Lord say to ask her, who told you that was wrong? And so I did. And there was dead silence. And I could feel everything shifting. Because a question that had never occurred to her got asked. Who told you that was wrong? Just like as if God said, who told you you were naked in the garden? Who told you that you should feel bad about yourself about that? Who made that decision for you that this should defeat you? And she said after a long time, I was quiet. I did the Greg Bender 10-second and then some. How long is it?
It's 18 seconds.
18?
18
How'd
seconds.
you what?
You ask a question, you wait 18 seconds.
Okay, well, 10, I was...
Minimum.
I waited longer. Minimum, okay. So I waited a really long time, and then she said, I don't know. And she goes, and my brain is kind of blowing up right now. Because it never occurred to me that it couldn't be wrong. It never occurred to me that maybe it wasn't a right and wrong issue. And she goes, I just know that I have been going crazy because I keep telling myself I just can't fight anymore. I am unsuccessful. I keep trying to fight this urge and I can't seem to win over it. And I'm out of fight. And I said, well, why don't you ask the Lord why you're out of fight? Maybe that's not the conversation he's wanting to have with you. Oh, man. So, my question tonight is, who told you your past was bad? Who told you that you failed in this or that circumstance? Who has given you the insight that you have about yourself? Who has told you that you were wrong in this, that, or whatever scenario? Who told you that that situation was a failure and not a success? Who told you that you didn't do what you were meant to do in that particular circumstance? Who has turned every great thing into a tie or a fall? Right? There is so much of our lives to be undone, we can't even hardly comprehend it. There is so much. I loved your and we haven't known that there are 3 people dwelling inside of us ready to kick that darkness to the curb. We've thought it was our own. We thought it was our own perspective. We even have thought it was wisdom. So we've grown up in an atmosphere where stools jump out and get you. And I want you to pay attention this week to people's language and see how many people blame themselves, like, oh, I wasn't looking where I was going. Oh, So I'm discovering, can I go here, Lord? Just a second, let me listen. He's like, if you dare. Like with a pirate voice. With a pirate voice. Go there if you dare. And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, okay, that's really funny. I super appreciate it, but what does that mean? So I talk with a lot of people during the week, like now I have people in my life, and it's taken a huge burden off of you, hasn't it?
Not as much as you would think.
That's not true. Seriously? Well,
Seriously.
okay. I mean, he would tell me when I was talking to my sister, and he'd come back in, and he's like, "You're still talking to your sister?" And it'd be like 4 hours later, and he's like, "You just keep talking. You keep talking, because if you use your million words on her, you will not have to use them on me."
There is no end.
There is no end.
There is no
It was
end.
like an outpouring. It was like an unending supply of words happening in my life.
I'm done by 6:30 a.m. every day.
Oh my gosh, I know. Abraham had a little girl, just a little quick side note, and then Abraham had a little girl just totally fall in love with him in kindergarten, and they decided, they came home and said, we're going to get married.
This is day one.
Day one. And he didn't want to go to kindergarten, by the way, and he was like traumatized and bawling. So I go to get him. He doesn't want to leave. He's all happy on the playground. And I said, "How was your first day at kindergarten?" He goes, "It was awesome. And tomorrow I'm getting married." And I'm like, that is exactly what this life is going to feel like. Like, seriously, today is kindergarten, tomorrow you're getting married. We came home and he started pulling stuff out of the cupboards in the kitchen. I'm like, "Dude, he's in kindergarten." I'm like, "You're not allowed to just pull stuff out." He goes, "Mom, I have to make a wedding cake. I'm getting married tomorrow." And he was totally serious. Yes. And I was like, "So, honey, you can't get, we have to meet her parents." I'm trying to figure out what I can do to move him off of this track without telling him you're not getting married for a whole lot of more years. Because I could tell he was really serious about this. And anyway, so Greg says, do you remember this?
No.
You said, "Well, if you were to have a cake, what would you have on top of it? Like a dinosaur?" And he goes, "Dad, it's a wedding cake." And he was in kindergarten. So you have to realize this is our first sarcasm ever. And we're like, "You are hilarious, but we can't act like it because then you'll become sarcastic." But that was really, really funny. He goes, "I know." And he runs to the playroom. He rummages around in his toys and he comes back. And there's this, the kids on the bus go up and down, boy. And he goes, "This will be me." And he goes, because he's a boy. And he goes, "And this will be her because she's beautiful." So good, right? Anyway, so a month later, I get to check in on this grand love affair that my son is having with this beautiful little girl. Was it Ava? Abraham and Ava. It was so cute,
I don't think it was Ava. It was something else. I can't remember.
With an A. It was so good.
I don't know.
Anyway, and so I said, "How's it going?" And he goes, "Oh, Mom." And he paused, and I'm waiting for him to tell me, "I am in love. This is, what am I going to do?" And he says, "Oh, Mom, I am so sick of her." I was like, "What?" And he goes, "I am so sick of her." And I go, "Why?" And he says, in kindergarten, "She talks so much, it's like she sucks all the words out of the room." Right? You have just articulated what every man in the history of the world has wanted to communicate, except for just a handful of women who are non-communicators, has felt. That is millions and millions of dollars of counseling right there. She talks so much, she sucks all the words out of the room. And I, after I recover myself, say to him, "Well, so you could just tell her, I would like to talk about myself a little bit too." And he goes, "Mom, I do. But when I start to talk, she always turns it back to herself." There's no spiritual point to this story, by the way. It's just purely entertainment value. No, I'm sure the Lord's got a connection here. Anyway, so I said, "Well, you still need to be kind." He goes, "I will try to be kind, but she keeps moving her cubby next to mine." So he would move his cubby to another location, and she would move her cubby, and then he'd move it. And anyway, so thus began the dynamics of male-female relationships for my son.